Hey everybody, Jesse here, host of Box Talks and Ring Walks, a new boxing podcast designed to give you an idea of what's going on in the sport of boxing. Specifically, we'll be taking a look at the fights that happened over the weekend and some of the fights coming up, as well as discussing any interesting news in the world of boxing and maybe take a little bit of an analytical look into certain fights and certain landscapes in the sport of boxing. So, without further ado, this is our very first episode on Sunday, September 15th, and we had kind of an interesting weekend. In years past, I might not have been so excited by this weekend, but since 2019 has been a little bit slow for boxing, this was pretty exciting. So, we're going to start Friday the 13th in Madison Square Garden, New York, New York, a card that was on DAZN. From Matchroom Boxing, we had Devin Haney versus Abdulev, and I'm going to butcher names probably a lot as I'm talking about this. On the undercard of Haney Abdulev, we had Heather Hardy going up against Amanda Serrano. This was my most anticipated fight of this card. Because I really like Haney and I really like Michael Hunter, but Heather Hardy and Amanda Serrano was a much better matchup. They're much more evenly matched. So I knew it was going to be a good fight, and it was a good fight. Amanda Serrano came out just showing us the boxer that we always knew she was. But against an opponent as good as Heather Hardy, it was really impressive to watch. She almost stopped her in the first round. Another ref probably would have stopped it in the first round. It was brutal. But then Heather Hardy has a champ and took it like a champ, went back to the corner and made adjustments, and she stayed in the fight. It ended up becoming a unanimous decision for Amanda Serrano. Really a no-brainer decision. I don't think anyone in their right minds would give it to Heather Hardy, but after watching that first round, I give her props for fighting the other 9, honestly. So Amanda Serrano is awesome. Up-and-comer in the sport, or not really even an up-and-comer. She's been around for a while, and she's been good for a while, but women's boxing just doesn't get its due, and I feel like there's not a lot of competition in there, so going up against somebody like Heather Hardy, who is established, who is a really good boxer in her own right, is really going to bring Serrano's profile up. But Serrano's profile should have been up already. If you're not a boxing fan, you won't know who she is. If you're not a female boxing fan, you won't know who she is. But if you are a really deep diver into boxing, you'll be like, yeah, of course Amanda Serrano is awesome. Nobody's surprised. And nobody's surprised that she beat Heather Hardy, by the way. But it was a great fight. Great fight. After that, we had Michael Hunter and Sergey Kuzmin, who, this is another fight that I knew the outcome right away. But it was still pretty fun to watch. Michael Hunter is good. And I say good because I haven't seen anything great from Michael Hunter yet. The best time I've seen Michael Hunter is when he was still at cruiserweight and he took on Alexander Usyk. And he lost. He lost that fight because Usyk is amazing. But Michael Hunter looked fantastic, and he made Usyk work for it, which is really important. It was really a moral victory for Michael Hunter. And I got excited about his career. But then he's moved up to heavyweight, and I have not seen anything that impressive from him in heavyweight. Kuzmin is a good win. He got a unanimous decision. He really outclassed him at some points, but then he would showboat a little bit, and Kuzmin made him pay for showboating, which is just, rookie stuff. But Michael Hunter is at the level where he needs to be over that rookie stuff. Like, if he's going to showboat, he needs to not get punished for it, right? Like, if you showboat, it's cool. Like Muhammad Ali did it, and it was awesome. But if you get punished for it, it's not cool. So if Michael Hunter took this fight a little bit more serious, I think that he would have looked better. But just the fact that he was clowning and then got caught was not impressive to me. So it's very hard for me to see him going up against Deontay Wilder or Andy Ruiz or Anthony Joshua. I don't see that. I don't see him being competitive at that level. Which before the Anthony Joshua Andy Ruiz fight was announced, I thought Michael Hunter was going to be AJ's opponent, and I thought that was going to be a good fight. But now, the more I'm seeing of Michael Hunter, I'm just being less and less convinced that he has what it takes at that championship level. But Michael Hunter just needs to prove me wrong. I think that competition makes fights. So Michael Hunter needs to rise up to the challenge of a championship fight. And the fights that he's have not been a challenge for him. And so we're not seeing the best Michael Hunter we can see. Then we've got Devin Haney, who is an awesome lightweight. He's 22-0, now 23-0 because he beat Abdulev by a corner retirement in round 4. So it's a TKO, but it's like a less satisfying TKO. He had Abdulev's number from the beginning. Abdulev looked okay for himself, but Abdulev was clearly an opponent. He was not somebody that we thought was going to give Devin Haney a run. So, TKO in the 4th round is really what you'd expect from this fight. But the interesting part about Devin Haney's performance was at the end, they talked about he's now the mandatory for Vasily Lomachenko. And that's kind of where the story is for Devin Haney right now. Not that he beat Abdulev. That's just, he did what he was supposed to do. And we give him props for that because he did. He showed up like the fighter that he is and took care of the business like he needs to. But now the conversation is on the mandatory between him and Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko wants to unify the division, which means he's not interested in Devin Haney. He's interested in Richard Comey. But Devin Haney is interested in him. And I do think it's funny because you see Campbell had a great display against Loma. He did not come close to winning. Loma is, arguably the pound-for-pound king right now. And if he's not at number 1, he's at number 2, or you're crazy. So Campbell never really gave Lomachenko a run, but he gave him trouble at certain points in the fight. And I think that always sparks a lot of people, a lot of other boxers, when they see a guy as good as Loma given trouble. They're like, oh, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And they forget that style make fights. So I think Devin Haney is a case of that, where he sees a little bit of vulnerability from Loma, and he thinks that he can step in and take care of business, which maybe he can. That's what's so wonderful about the sport of boxing, is that maybe Devin Haney can do it. But my money's on Lomachenko for that fight. But I think it's a good fight. I would love to see it happen. I think the interesting thing when people fight Loma, this is what I was saying about Luke Campbell before the fight, is that it's not, you're never talking about their careers like, oh, if they win, then XYZ. It's always, when they're about to fight Loma, I'm talking about their careers in a, where are they going to go after they lose? What's next for them after the loss? Because, I'm not a casual boxing fan, so I know that a loss is not the end of a career, right? Like, AJ still could have a long career ahead of him. The fact that he lost to Andy Ruiz is a setback, but it's not the end, right? Boxers lose fights. You can't fight at this level and not lose sometimes. So I'm not concerned that these guys are losing to Lomachenko. My concern is, where are they going next? And I just think it's funny that Loma is at such a high level of competition that anytime somebody enters the ring with him, we're talking about where's he going to go after he loses and not what's going to happen if he wins. But Loma is incredible, and I do think, we saw Salido had his number, and we'll see some other people probably in the future get his number a little bit and bring him down to earth. But right now, it's just incredible to watch him decimate all the competition at lightweight. Sorry that this Devin Haney segment turned into a Loma segment, but that's kind of the beast right now when you're talking about any fights in lightweight, is you end up talking about how much better Loma is than everyone else at lightweight, which is sad, and I think that could change with a few lightweights up and coming, but we'll see. Moving on from Friday, Devin Haney was a good card. Saturday we had a couple different cards. We had one in London on ESPN Plus that I didn't watch. It was a lot of contenders, up and comers, some has-beens, stuff like that. And I just had business to take care of, and I didn't really watch much of it. I heard a little bit about it, but I'm not going to cover it. I just want you all to know. I know it happened. I don't think it's really worth the time to cover all of those fights. No disrespect to those boxers. You guys did good, and we'll probably see you again very soon. But I'm not going to cover that card. We also, on cards that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, another DAZN card was Jaime Munguia fighting Patrick Alote. I might be saying that wrong, and I probably am saying that wrong, but surprise, surprise, Jaime Munguia won KO round 4. Jaime Munguia is good at super welter, and will lose to any champ in that division or middleweight. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. Jaime Munguia is good, but I just... Speaking of cards, I'm not going to talk very much about. We had another DAZN card in California. Jaime Munguia fighting Mexican Independence Day, 1 KO round 4. Good for him. I'm not talking about that too much because it wasn't much of a fight, and this will lead into kind of a bigger conversation I'm having later of top guys not fighting other top guys, which I don't think is a problem in the sport. I think it can be, but I don't think it is right now. So Jaime Munguia, he's not fighting anyone with much competition. We're not surprised that he won. We're happy that he won. Good for him. He took care of business. There's just not a lot of conversation to have about the fight. Jaime Munguia knocked out Alote round 4. Good job. He checked the box just like Haney. He did what he needed to do for his career at that moment. So I'm certainly not upset with him or his promoters for the fight. I'm certainly not one of those guys saying, "Oh, he's fighting a bum," or I wouldn't say that, and I won't say that because it's not true. He fought an opponent who is 40-3, or is now 40-4, was 40-3 at the time of the fight, is not a chump. But really, we stood no chance against Jaime Munguia, and Munguia did what was required of him. Good job, Munguia. Thank you very much. Moving on, this is the big event, the ESPN Plus event at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was Tyson Fury against Otto Wallin. And this was exciting because of who Tyson Fury is, and not because of Otto Wallin is. No disrespect to Wallin, but we all know that's true. So before we jump straight into the Tyson Fury, we're going to talk about Jose Pedrada versus Jose Zepeda. This was sold as like the a 50-50 pick'em fight on the card. This was one that a lot of people were getting more excited for. Uh, Pedraza and Zepeda are really good guys, former champs, and they're going at it, and they both don't really need another loss in their careers right now. They both needed this win. They both are trying to prove that they still have something, that they still deserve title shots. And neither of them really looked that good. Like, sad to say, Zepeda won a unanimous decision very fairly. Zepeda clearly won the fight. Pedraza looked bad. And take that with a grain of salt. Pedraza looked bad for who Pedraza is. I've certainly seen a lot worse fights. I've certainly seen people do a lot worse than Jose Pedraza did against Zepeda. I have seen, he didn't get knocked out. It was a unanimous decision for Zepeda. But I was expecting Pedraza to be on another level. And I was expecting Zepeda to be on a better level too. So it's kind of disappointing, but Zepeda, good for him. He does have that Pedraza name on his record now. He's now 31-2, and he can move on to some pretty interesting things in the junior welterweight, super lightweight, whatever you want to call it, the 140-pound division. They talked on the broadcast a lot about a potential rematch with Jose Ramirez, which I think is going to end exactly the same as the first one. Doesn't mean that's bad. You could still set up that rematch. But this fight didn't prove to me that there was going to be anything different happening. I saw this fight and I was like, okay, yep, Zepeda is who Zepeda is. Ramirez is a better fighter. So I don't need that rematch to have any questions answered in my mind. If you feel like Zepeda deserves the rematch, I certainly understand that, and we can give it to him. And this is boxing. Anything can happen. But in my mind, I don't need a Zepeda-Ramirez rematch. I think it's going to end exactly like the first one did. Moving on, after Zepeda took on Pedraza, we had Emmanuel Navarrete take on Juan Miguel Elord. It sounds like the singer Lord, but it's Elord. Navarrete is awesome. He's a super bantamweight fighter. He just beat Isaac Dogboe twice in a row. He won his title against the first fight against Isaac Dogboe. It was the WBO title. And then he rematched him, which, classy move, because I don't think anyone needed the rematch, but he did it. He was probably contractually obligated, and he, beat Dogboe even worse the second time. Now, he took an opponent. This is the interesting thing about Navarrete. He fought 28 days ago, 29 now because it's Sunday, but there was 28 days between this fight and his last fight. Granted, neither of these fights were against really stiff competition. They're kind of both opponents. But I don't care who you are, fighting 28 days apart, that's incredible. That is incredible. And that was the only reason that this fight was really that interesting, because again, is Navarrete fighting an opponent, which is fine. It's part of the sport. We like it. But the fact that he's fighting 28 days later is like, are we going to see something with Navarrete? Which we didn't. We saw Navarrete take care of business. It was a TKO round 4. Referee stopped the fight. I felt like he didn't need to stop it that early, but I definitely feel like I'd rather referee stop fights too early than too late, and I think everyone can agree with me there. But Elord didn't look like he was out just yet, but he was clearly losing the fight, and it didn't really need to continue. The ending was telegraphed, so I'm not upset about the stoppage, but I do think that we're kind of in an age where fights are getting stopped a little early, which is not bad. It's actually kind of good. We care about the safety of our fighters. So, if that's the only thing that I have to complain about, I'm living in a happy paradise. So, Navarrete, TKO round 4, takes care of business against Elord. Good job. Well done. Now, we're getting into the fight that everybody couldn't wait to see. It was Tyson Fury versus Otto Wallin. There was a lot of hype for this fight that I was not expecting. Like, it seemed like people were really into it, which I didn't get with Tyson Fury versus Tom Schwarz. And you could make an argument that Wallin is better than Schwarz, and the two fights against Tyson Fury would support that argument. But still, Wallin is not Deontay Wilder. Wallin is not even a top contender in heavyweight. But people were hyped for it. So I appreciated that. I hate the conversation of like, oh, Tyson Fury's fighting bums, doesn't want to rematch Deontay Wilder. It isn't true. It makes you sound dumb, and it's clear that you don't have any idea of how the sport of boxing works when you say things like that. But Tyson Fury taking on Otto Wallin, and this fight did not go the way people thought it was gonna go. It did. If you just look at the line of the fight, if you just look, Tyson Fury won unanimous decision against Otto Wallin. You're like, okay, sure, no surprise. You look at the rounds won. I think I scored it 8-4. I think a lot of people scored it 9-3, which I think is also fair. I might have given Wallin too much. So you look at that and you say, yeah, that sounds about right. That's what I expected for this fight. 8-4, Tyson Fury dominated the fight. Sounds good. But Otto Wallin cut Tyson Fury really bad. He had a nasty gash over his eye. And you should check out the highlights of this fight or just look up the pictures of the gash. It was nasty. And he cut it with a punch, is what the replay showed. That it was at first they thought it was an accidental clash of heads, but it was very clearly a good left hand from Wallin that opened up a cut over Tyson Fury's eye, his right eye. And this was concerning because there were points where you thought they could stop the fight because of the cut, which of course would mean that Otto Wallin would get a TKO victory. Which is sad. I don't like to see victories because of a bad cut, or a bad cut exclusively. I want to see somebody gets cut really bad and they're being dominated, and then the TKO. I'm like, yeah. But this was a case of Tyson Fury was cut really bad, but Otto Wallin was still not winning the fight. He won several rounds, and Tyson Fury was pawing at his eye a little bit, and Wallin was targeting the eye really badly, which was smart, good for Wallin, and it led him to win a lot of rounds that he otherwise I don't think would have won. But Tyson Fury dominated, and Tyson Fury showed us the type of boxer he is, that he can get hurt. We've seen him get hurt several times. We've seen him be knocked down. But he made the adjustments, and he protected his eye, and he hunted down Wallin and put an end to anybody thinking that this was going to go any way other than Tyson Fury's. I think I scored rounds 6 to 10 were just Tyson Fury, because Wallin gassed. First of all, he couldn't put Tyson Fury down, because Tyson Fury actually has a pretty good chin, which is just a credit to how powerful Deontay Wilder is. But Tyson Fury has a pretty good chin, and Wallin could not put him down, cut or no cut. One thing that was really, really disappointing from Wallin, in what otherwise I would have been walking away from this fight saying, Wallin really showed up. He did something awesome. He won some rounds against Tyson Fury. He looked better than I thought he was going to look. He opened up the cut, and then he went back to the cut, and he made Tyson Fury work. And I was going to give him props for that. But Ottavellin, at one point, Tyson Fury ties him up, clinches him because he's going for the cut, and the ref separates him. And Ottavellin does a scummy move where he just like claws at Tyson Fury's cut as they're being pulled apart. And it wasn't like he goes in for a jab of it, because one, when you're being pulled apart, you're not supposed to hit each other. Sometimes they do. And I understand. It's a rough sport. People get hurt. And we like that guys are rough. We don't want them sitting in the ring playing patty cake. But there's a line of sportsmanship that you have to adhere to. And Ottavellin crossed it when he clawed at Tyson Fury's cut. And it was really shameful to watch it, because I'm like, I didn't want him to win after that. Like before, I was like, if Ottavellin wins, this will be a huge upset, it'll be really cool. And then after that happened, I was like, if they stop this fight because of the cut, I'm going to be so mad, because that's the scummiest way to win. He didn't win, and I'm sure I'm going to get over it, and I do have a lot of respect for Ottavellin and what he was able to do in this fight. But I hope that was, adrenaline, heat of the moment. He was trying to hurt the cut, and he made a mistake, and we can get over it. But if that's kind of the fighter we're going to see Ottavellin turn into, I'm not interested. So hopefully, fighters make mistakes. Sometimes fighters play dirty, and it sucks, and we should say, hey, that sucked, but we can move on and still be fans of the fighter. And I hope that's what happens with Ottavellin. But that really left a bad taste in my mouth for his performance. And it's sad, because it was a good performance. He gassed at the end of it. So it's certainly, I'm not like watching this performance and like, oh, he could take on Deontay Wilder. Nope. Not at all. Not at all. I'm watching this performance and I'm like, he could take on Michael Hunter, who I talked about earlier. Sure. I think Ottavellin could beat Michael Hunter. Yeah. But, he hasn't cemented himself as like a top contender for me just because of this performance. But he did look better than a journeyman, which is how I thought of him before this fight. So that was pretty much the weekend. We do have some news outside of fights, a press conference that happened this weekend that I'll get to in just a minute. But first, I want to transition to talking about Tyson Fury and the heavyweight landscape at large, which was a conversation I always was planning to have for this, but then I thought I might be having a different conversation because I thought the fight was going to be stopped from that cut. So, Tyson Fury, we talked about it a lot just now, going up against an opponent in Ottavellin, not a contender, not somebody that we really gave much of a chance. Navarrete did the same thing against Elord. Haney did the same thing against Abdulev, and I promised this conversation of, do top guys need to fight exclusively top guys? The answer to that is obviously no, they do not. They do need to fight top guys. Tyson Fury needs to fight Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder needs to fight Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz needs to fight Tyson Fury. We want those fights to happen. But you're crazy and you don't understand the sport if you think that these are the only fights that are ever going to happen. Right? Muhammad Ali does not have Joe Frazier and George Foreman and nobody else on his record. If you go and looked up Muhammad Ali's record, you see those fights that happen and that were awesome and that we talk about even still today. But you see also a lot of fights that don't need to be mentioned, right? This is how the sport of boxing works. This is how you build up a fighter. A prospect that's coming into a contender doesn't need to fight other contenders. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a contender shot ruined because they pushed him too fast too quickly. I would rather see a prospect that's becoming a contender, keep taking on those journeymen, keep taking on those old guys that have been around for a while that can challenge them a little bit. I want to see them challenged, but I don't want to see them pushed too far too fast. And then I want to see them get the title shot and prove themselves. And for champions, it's the same thing. I want to see champions fight other champions. Tyson Fury needs to rematch Deontay Wilder. That fight has to happen. It does not have to happen this second. If it never happens, I'll be very upset. But I won't be upset about the fact that Tyson Fury fought Tom Schwarz and Otto Wallin. If you don't think it's a good fight, that's fine. If you want to skip those fights, I completely understand that. But I think going around talking about, oh, this is a disgrace to the sport, this isn't how the sport is supposed to work, you look like a fool. You don't have a clear understanding of what this sport is. Tyson Fury can't just fight Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua and nobody else. That's not how the sport works. That's not how it's supposed to work. And these fights against Otto Wallin are important. And, we saw it with AJ and Andy Ruiz, where sometimes a guy gets a shot and he turns in a surprise, which I think a lot of people underestimated Andy Ruiz. But still, even if you weren't underestimating him, which everybody was underestimating him, but I gave him more of a shot than a lot of people did, and I never expected that he was going to win. Right, I thought that, because people were saying, AJ's going to make quick work of him, he's just going to floor him, he stands no chance, and I'm like, Andy Ruiz is a good fighter. He'll do alright. I thought it was going to be a unanimous decision for Joshua. But, Ruiz surprised everybody, and that is important in boxing, and we need that. But Wilder and Fury do need to rematch, and the reports are that they are going to rematch in the winter. Tyson Fury took care of his business with Otto Wallin. Deontay Wilder is supposed to rematch with Luis Ortiz, which is a little bit more dangerous of a fight than Otto Wallin is. But Wilder took care of Luis Ortiz once, and I think Luis Ortiz peaked already. I don't think Luis Ortiz is ever going to look as good as he did in that first Wilder fight. So while it is there's always a chance that Wilder could lose this fight, I think Ortiz's time has passed, which is kind of sad. But I don't expect him to beat Wilder this time around. And maybe I'm overcompensating because I come from a long history of underestimating Deontay Wilder. I've been following his career for a while, and I thought Luis Ortiz was going to beat him the first time. That was my pick, was Luis Ortiz is going to be the new WBC champ. I was very wrong. I picked Tyson Fury to beat Deontay Wilder, which he did, and there was some just terrible judging. But I still underestimated Deontay Wilder because I wouldn't have said that Wilder would look that good against Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury still won, but we're going to get the rematch for him to prove that again. But I don't expect Luis Ortiz to do much against Deontay Wilder. I think the last fights I've seen of Luis Ortiz have not looked good. He's looked old, he's looked slow, which no disrespect, Luis Ortiz is a champ. I love that guy. But against Deontay Wilder, I give him very little of a chance. So I don't want to count chickens before they hatch. It's a dangerous thing to do in boxing, but I think the reports are that winter, I heard February specifically, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder rematch is coming, and that will be exciting. Because it will be, I think, in my mind, it's a case of, can Deontay Wilder improve, or is Tyson Fury the new WBC champ? That's kind of the question that I need answered for me, because Wilder has a puncher's chance, but we saw Tyson Fury is so good at just frustrating Wilder. So can Wilder take that fight and learn from it and be the champ that he claims to be, which would be really exciting. I'm not trying to disrespect Wilder at all. I would love to see him beat Tyson Fury and show off the skills that he has. Or can he not make the adjustments, and is Tyson Fury just a better fighter? That's the question that we're going to see, and it should be exciting because it is a good fight. And I think I kind of sound like I'm not giving Wilder much of a chance, and that's not true. I think it's probably a 50-50 fight. It's just, I think the question is not who's going to get lucky. I think the question is, the first fight, Tyson Fury was clearly better than Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder just had power that Fury wasn't ready for. So the second fight is going to be, can Deontay Wilder make the adjustments to beat Tyson Fury? Because Tyson Fury is not a god. He's a mortal man, and he can be beat in a boxing match. And Deontay Wilder has the tools to beat him if he can figure that out. And that's what I'm interested to see. Can Deontay Wilder beat Tyson Fury, which he did not do the first time? Or is Tyson Fury going to do the same thing to Deontay Wilder that he did the first time, which I think would mean Tyson Fury would win. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting heavyweight landscape. We also have the AJ and Andy Ruiz rematch coming up, which will be very interesting. I think that fight is going to be kind of a lot of the same things that I was just talking about with Fury Wilder, where we saw Andy Ruiz just be better than AJ. And that was the worst I've ever seen AJ. Even at his ring walk, when he was walking out, I was like, he doesn't look good. He looks bad. Like, something is not right with him. So are we going to see peak AJ come out and just floor Ruiz? And we'll say, oh, yep, this was kind of a fluke. AJ had a bad night. Or are we going to see Ruiz show, yeah, this is the boxer that I am 24/7. I am better than AJ. Either way, I think it's a good fight. I think it's an interesting fight. I'm okay with either one of those outcomes. I'm really excited about AJ just saying, this was a fluke, boom, I'm the champ. And then I'll get excited about the winner of Wilder Fury versus the winner of versus AJ, which would take years to make. Or Ruiz comes out and he says, no, I'm the better boxer. This wasn't a fluke. I just have AJ's number. And then I can get excited about Ruiz versus the winner of Wilder Fury. So it's exciting. It's an exciting heavyweight landscape. But I want the conversation to stop about people saying they need to fight each other. They need to fight each other. They need to fight each other. They will. Like, they're right. They do need to fight each other. And they will. But they don't need to fight only each other. It's okay for things to happen along the way. This is what makes boxing great. This is what makes it so fun, is that we have time. We watch them. Because look, if Fury and Wilder rematched right away, that would have been a fun fight. But the fact, if Wilder takes on two opponents, knocks him out, because he's Deontay Wilder, of course he'll knock him out, and then Fury takes on two opponents, knocks out one, and outboxes the other one with a terrible gash on his head. Like, we're saying, wow, these guys are good. They're not just good against each other. They're not just champs or only fighting champs. The fact is, we're seeing them outclass the division, which is something that's we need to see. Because the reason we want the champs to fight each other is because they're the best. And the reason that they're the best is because they outclass the rest of the division. So if they stop fighting the lower guys, we're not going to see it, how better they are. We're not going to see how better they are than the rest of the division. The fact that Tyson Fury is so much better than Tom Schwartz, who the WBO ranked at number 2, shows you that Tyson Fury is really that good. It's not a fluke. He's not a guy who's capitalizing on a weak time in the heavyweight division. He really is that good. And we need to see that. And also, it is important because it's a business. It's about making money. And I promise you that the rematch will make more money now than it would have if it happened right away. Which, I don't care about that because it's not going to my pocket. So I would have, for that reason alone, I would have rather seen it right away. But I understand it. I understand that these guys need to make money, and I'm glad that they are. As long as they're fighting each other, I'm not. It doesn't have to be right away. It doesn't have to be the next fight. They need to fight each other, but it doesn't have to be the next fight. And I think that's really important that a lot of fans need to know. So, moving on into news. Lots of news. Boxing is an interesting sport when it comes to news because I hear something every day, and not all of it is interesting, and not all of it is true. So I've heard different reports about, you know, Floyd Mayweather coming back 2020. I've heard that a lot. Is he coming back for an exhibition match? He's not coming back to fight Manny Pacquiao. I can tell you that. So, I'll cover that when there's more of a story. But I have heard those rumors. I don't want you to think that I haven't. But the big news, unfortunately, I cringe when I say this, but the other thing that happened this weekend was the press conference. The press conference for KSI and Logan Paul's rematch. If you don't know, if you're a boxing fan and not a pop culture fan, you're like, who the hell are these guys? And if you're not a boxing fan, this might be the reason that you tuned into this. So I'm not an expert on who these guys are. I'm a boxing fan more than a YouTube person, but from what I understand, these are two YouTubers who are kind of cringy and kind of, I don't know, like diss each other, I guess, on YouTube, and they fought an amateur fight a few years ago or last year or something. I don't know. It was a 3-round amateur fight that was a draw, and I didn't watch it. So, I don't know. Maybe it was a great fight, but I doubt it. Anyways, so it was a YouTube spectacle, and apparently it was a draw. And Eddie Hearn, being such a great promoter that he is, Eddie Hearn saw this fight and was like, damn, here's a place where I can make money. And he's right. This is a place where he can make money. So he is promoting KSI and Logan Paul to fight a professional match this time. I think they're going to weigh in at cruiserweight. And they're going to fight again. Then the press conference happened this weekend, and these guys are... I don't know if they're trying to sell this fight in like a WWE style, because that's what it was like, or if they really are like that cringy. I don't know enough about these two guys to tell you, but this press conference was the most cringe thing I've ever seen. Like, they're crap talking each other, and Logan Paul said something about KSI, like, cussed out his mom on Christmas or something, and it was just like, I don't think anyone knew what they were talking about, and they made themselves look foolish, and it really did feel like I was watching WWE, like I was watching Monday Night Raw, and they were promoting the WrestleMania to me. That's what it felt like, where I was like, this can't be real. These guys are way too crazy to be real. But at the same time, it kind of felt like they were just that crazy. But I gotta give props to Eddie Hearn, because I hear that Billy Joe Saunders and Devin Haney are gonna be fighting on this undercard, which, like, I'm not gonna miss that. And that's smart, because he's gonna bring a lot of people into the boxing world who are coming to watch KSI and Logan Paul rematch. Those people who are their fans are gonna come, and they're going to watch some probably good undercard matches. Those both of those guys are solid fighters, um, and I'm gonna watch the undercard, uh, probably just to see how Billy Joe Saunders and Devin Haney are looking, and I'm not gonna watch the whole undercard and then turn it off right before the main fight. Like, most people aren't gonna do that, so I am gonna end up watching this fight. Um, and maybe it'll be surprise everybody and actually be a good fight. I doubt that, but it could happen. But that's just it's props to Eddie Hearn because that really is a smart decision. It is going to bring more people into the sport of boxing, which I really appreciate. I think that's important. Boxing needs more casual fans, and it's not going to just go wasted because us boxing fans who've been around are also going to tune in because there's some good undercard fights on that, or there should be. I don't think anything is announced or set in stone yet, so I could be totally wrong about how this event shapes up. But as of right now, I'm excited, and that's kind of the sad thing is the base part of my brain is a little bit excited because I watched how cringy they were crap talking each other, and then you're like, man, I kind of want them to beat the crap out of each other. Like, I want them to both get beat up, which is really bad, and I don't like feeling that way, but uh, you know, good on them. They're selling a fight, and props to them for that. So I don't have much of a take on that. I didn't see the first fight. I don't know much about them. Uh, anyways, so I don't have a lot of a take on that, but I think it is interesting, and there is a lot of talk in it in the boxing world. The other big news is Canelo is moving up to light heavyweight to fight Sergey Kovalev. And the question in my mind, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, is can Canelo have power at that weight class? I don't think anybody's wondering if he can beat Kovalev. I think the only question is the weight. Because Canelo is a pound for pound guy. Kovalev is not. Kovalev is a champ. Kovalev is not an easy touch by any means. Kovalev could win this. But I think for most people, if Kovalev wins, it's going to be a case of, yeah, Canelo doesn't have it at light heavy. He doesn't have it at 175. He doesn't have what he has at 160. He can't carry it up to 175, which, that's fine. I would expect nothing else. But I think that's really the question of that fight. I don't think anyone is really giving Kovalev a chance beyond that. Which is sad, because Kovalev really is good, but that's just a testament to how good Canelo is. That he can... It's like the Loma situation, where he's going up against good opponents, and we're not talking about how good the fight is. We're talking about, yeah, he's probably going to win, But it's interesting. It's interesting that Canelo is going up that high in weight class, because the question is he going to come back? Or is he going to try and dominate light heavyweight? I know he wanted to unify middleweight, and there was a lot of politics keeping him from that, or making it harder for him, I'll say. So he didn't unify middleweight, but I feel like he could have. The Triple G decision, the first one was pretty bad. The second one, a little bit, I think, was less controversial, but still plenty of controversy. But going with the official decision of, he beat Triple G, whether you feel that way or not, Triple G was really the biggest threat to him in the division. Everybody else, it was interesting to see him fight Danny Jacobs, but that fight was not really surprising. So, I don't know. For me personally, I don't need him to unify the division, because I feel like the question of who's the king of middleweight is answered. It's Canelo. Like, Canelo is the 160 king. Whether he has all the belts or not doesn't matter to me. but I understand for like legacy and history, because people look back and they might not see as in depth all of the ins and outs of the middleweight division that we can clearly see right now. They'll just see Canelo had, X number of belts, was stripped a belt, blah blah blah, and maybe think, oh, maybe he wasn't the king of middleweight, but he was. So I think history will reflect he was the king of middleweight at this time, especially if there's a third Triple G fight and he wins it. That will really cement that. But if he goes up to light heavyweight and just leaves middleweight behind, that's interesting, and that's a move I'm not expecting. But it would be really fun to see Canelo unify light heavy. So I don't know what all of his plans are with that. He's going to fight Kovalev. I don't know if that's just he wants to fight Kovalev. He wants to show how powerful he is, 15 pounds heavier, or if he's trying to stay in light heavy. I'm sure there's a quote about it. But it's interesting, nonetheless. It should be a good fight. Canelo Kovalev is an exciting fight. It's not top guy against an opponent. It's top guy against a top guy, which is what we like to get excited about. So, yeah, bring it on. I know people like to talk crap about Canelo and they want him to fight other guys in middleweight. But if he's fighting a contender, like when he fought Rocky Fielding, that was clearly just, I want to get this belt in another division. And it's not the same. I know we were just having the conversation of you don't have to fight the top guy every single time. But I do think it's a little bit, you're going after this legacy move where you're like, I want a belt in a third weight class. And it's like, when you're chasing a belt, you should be chasing a top guy, right? Like, he should be fighting a Callum Smith. If he just wanted a tune-up fight against Rocky Fielding with no belt, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I would have been like, yeah, good for you, Canelo. But I don't know. I feel like people were like, oh yeah, he's gonna get a belt in a third weight class, and it's just sort of like, yeah, but it's Rocky Fielding, which, like, no disrespect to Rocky Fielding, but I don't know. Good for Canelo. Maybe I'm off base. Maybe I'm giving Canelo more crap than he deserves. But Canelo versus Kovalev is a good fight. That's the point of this whole thing. That's a good fight. That's an exciting fight. That's something we can look forward to. I can't wait. Okay. I think we're about ready to wrap up. Alright, so I think before we wrap, we're just going to take a look in what's coming up over the next weekend, or perhaps weekend after that. Next weekend, there's not much. There is a card in California. It's going to be on Fox Sports, and it's it's kind of the card I talked about at the beginning of this episode of, some contenders, some prospects, some just interesting fights, but not any champs or the really big names. But it looks like some interesting guys, right? So Peter Quillen is taking on Alfredo Angulo. I could be saying that completely wrong, and I apologize. For the headline, Peter Quillen, obviously, he's a super middle contender. And then there's a featherweight, Chris Colbert against Miguel Beltran Jr. An interesting fight. I think Chris Colbert is kind of an up-and-comer. The interesting thing to me is the welterweight fight of Thomas Delorme against Terrell Williams, because I think Terrell Williams is supposed to be a new guy in welterweight, and Thomas Delorme is his first test, is how it seems to me on paper. I don't know much about Terrell Williams, so if you know about this guy, if you've seen him, hit me up. And I might have seen him. I watch a lot of boxing, so it's sort of like I'll see a guy on an undercard and forget about it. But the way it reads on paper is Terrell Williams is a prospect that could enter contender status with a victory against Delorme, and that's exciting. I like to see those up and coming fights. Um, it's really fun to see new guys coming in and shaking up the division. So I'm hoping for Terrell Williams to knock out Delorme, um, and then move on to the top guys in welterweight. Which, if we had more time, I would love to talk more about the welterweight division. Maybe that'll be uh, next week's episode. After we'll see what happens with Delorme and Williams. Hopefully we can take more of a look in the welterweight division, but not next weekend. The weekend after, we will definitely have a welterweight conversation because September 28th, Errol Spence is going to be taking on Sean Porter, and that is big. That should be really fun. That's the one I'm looking forward to. So, weekend coming up, Saturday, there's a pretty decent card. It'll be on Fox Sports. Weekend after that, Fox pay-per-view, Spence versus Porter. That's going to be fun. There's some good fights on the undercard, which I'll probably talk about next week in the upcoming section. But that right now is definitely the next big thing, is Spence Porter. So next week, expect a conversation about Spence Porter and the welterweight division, which is a really exciting division, filled with a lot of politics talk about this network versus that next network. So that's kind of what's coming up next week. Welterweight conversation on the podcast and a decent contender filled card. That's all that we have for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is our first episode. If there's something you didn't like, let me know. If something you really like, let me know. Any thing you want to hear me talk about more, just let me know. I think the email that you can reach us at is Box Talks podcast. Yeah, Box Talk podcast at gmail.com. Should be in the description and show notes and all of that. So yeah, that was this week for boxing. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see different. Have a great week.